everybody to episode 1, the official first episode of our Retail Media Confession series. As a reminder, this is going to be a monthly series, and Andrew Lipsman and I are going to be breaking down some of the hottest topics in the industry, tied to confessions from some of our favorite friends and peers, and what to do about them, and actual tactical advice on how to move forward. Today, we're going to focus on one of the hot flaming topics that hit the tail end of 2025 relative to organizational silos and how they're impeding growth in retail media. So we are going to turn it over to a special guest to give their POV, or 2026's first retail media confession. And then Andrew and I are going to unpack from there.
Hi, I'm Mark Williamson, and I have at least 5 bosses. That's my confession. When you do retail media, you end up being involved in an awful lot of decisions, a lot of discussions, and get thrown into a lot of different areas of the business. Retail media cannot exist on its own. It touches every part of the retail business. It's merchandising, it's operations, it's marketing, it's membership or loyalty, it's finance, it's accounting, it's legal. And so not a day goes by that I don't feel like I work for our chief merchant, our chief marketing officer, our chief operating officer, our head of legal, or whatever it may be. And ultimately, that's the way that it has to be, because retail media is an element of a much larger business. But we have to be very good at media publishing, and we have to be really, really good at retail. And my perspective is retail media, it's all caps retail, all lowercase media. And so as a retail media general manager, the job is to try to thread that needle and find the balance between doing media really well and doing retail really well. Too often, retail media gets set up as a zero-sum game. It's either merchandising or it's advertising. It's either marketing or it's advertising. And I think if we're not careful, that can definitely be the default state. But the opportunity to use supplier partnerships, agency and brand partnerships through retail media to reach more customers, to drive more traffic, to drive more sales is just too good to pass up. I think ultimately we can all get what we want when we're all working together. That may mean that me and people like me feel like we have 5 bosses, or maybe we have to get into the weeds on some really difficult conversations around KPI alignment, margin alignment, and making sure that the retail side of the business is getting what they need. But ultimately, I think it's worth it in the end.
All right, so let's break down this issue. So first off, this comes up all the time in every single retail media network. There's always this inherent tension, sometimes conflict between the media and merchandising teams. And I think it all starts for a few reasons. One is that it seems like they're playing a zero-sum game, and that's not actually the case. There's actually opportunity for both of these groups to very much work together and align better. It's not a zero-sum game. It's really a grow the pie scenario for the retailer, because they have the same objective at the end of the day, and that is growing receipts, right? They both want to increase sales. If you want to grow your retail media network, you better increase sales, because that's what's going to drive your return on ad spend, that drives more investment. And obviously the merchant wants more sales. Now, this isn't a secret that merchants often run the retail organization. So there also has to be a bit of deference to the fact that the merchant's needs are going to have to be met first. Both of these groups have different KPIs and incentives that are driving their decision making at the end of the day. And so we need better alignment. Merchandising is really thinking first about CX, so that nothing gets in the way of sales, and then obviously margin. Whereas the media teams really are under a ton of pressure just to keep growing revenue. So they want to make a lot of sales, but that can come into tension with what the merchant teams are trying to do.
Yeah, I think Sarah Marzano's piece that was put out late last year said that half of RMNs have cross-functional KPIs, tied to their partners, and fewer than a third tie their incentives to merch teams. And I do agree that there's a missed flywheel opportunity here. Obviously, the more that you can connect the customer experience the more likely you are going to see better ROI and getting to that incremental ROI that everybody's looking for. I think the other piece that gets left out is growing loyalty. And retail media teams, you know, they need that access to customers to continue to be viable and relevant. And so they need the merchandising teams as well. We need to have the right assortments. We need to have the right customer experiences. You know, the link there is so clear, but I would agree there's a lot of noise in between. So as we're kind of thinking about this problem or this area of opportunity, as we at Inmar like to reframe, I think that there are some things that can be done. There are some tactical best practices, and I do think there are some teams out there who have made strides in this area. Andrew, what are your thoughts on some tactical ways that teams can move forward?
Yeah, so I think it first off comes down to aligning incentives. Incentives, KPIs, more than anything, drive organizational alignment. If they're not sharing KPIs, they're going to be moving in different directions. Now, here's the big unlock, in my opinion. You know, merchants want to increase sales, but margin is super valuable. What does retail media give you? Margin, right? That's where it really flexes its muscle. Why aren't the merchants getting margin credit for retail media sales? That's a place where you can really align things and everybody's interested. Doesn't mean the merchants are going to say, all right, have at it and just do whatever you want within my pristine customer experience, but it does give them incentives to find ways to make it work. And so I think that's one of the big ones. The other thing I would say from the standpoint of the retail media teams is they have to show that they are respecting the merchant and what they're trying to do. And so I think it's adopting a philosophy and a posture all around CX first. We are not allowed to advertise unless we are honoring the CX that matters most. And again, this is good for everyone, right? These are the sorts of alignment issues. It means that the content's going to be good. It's going to interest customers. It's going to drive loyalty and ultimately drive sales. So if you can align sort of culturally and on the internal metrics, I think you'll be able to take a big step forward for the organization.
And all merchants out there are taking that snippet and sharing it with their bosses. If we could just give credit for all of this awesome margin, I do not disagree with that. I think, you know, the elusive merchant scorecard conversation has been going around for years and years and years. I do think there are some RMNs out there that have tackled this issue and this area of opportunity. I would say it's important to counterbalance with some of the other points you made, which you do have to ensure that the experience is right for the ultimate customer, as well as if you're asking for those media dollars, you do have to prove that they are working, that they are well spent, that they are not just the tax to doing work with a retailer. Additionally, I think executive sponsorship is a really big deal. I've seen RMNs out there who have super engaged C-level executives who are having consistent meetings between the head of merchandising, the CEO, the CMO. Those organizations are coming together talking about driving solutions and driving overall retail outcomes and making retail media part of that conversation and understanding the role it plays is really the only way that, you know, outside of reorganizing structures or, you know, putting together kind of brand new organizations, I think without the executive sponsorship, it's difficult to ensure alignment and also plans in place to drive the alignment.
And there's different forms of executive alignment, right? I mean, it really goes straight up to the top. The CEO has to say, this is important. These teams need to work together to make it happen, but also be willing to provide some of the resource that's needed to make it happen. I don't think it's as productive if it's just issuing a mandate and leaving it there, because ultimately when you're trying to force change, you got to put both groups in a position to be successful.
And then now all the RMN GMs are going to take that resource conversation. They're going to save that and send that to their bosses. We are really gonna start buzzword bingo with these sessions. Please look out for our bingo card. I think overall, just to kind of close this out, what I've observed is that one of the bigger areas of opportunity that truly can hinder growth is just organizational alignment in general. And no effort forward is wasted. So obviously every organization is differently, but don't let perfection be the enemy of progress in this area.
To close things out, I'd say that the fundamental way to solve this problem is to stop thinking of things as a zero-sum game, right? There are turf battles inside organizations all the time. Once you realize this is a huge opportunity for the company to both grow sales, revenue, and margin, if you can just align a bit better, then you realize it's a case where it's win-win-win. Win for the brand, win for the retailer, win for the customer, and then within the retailer, obviously winning for each of the respective organizations. So the tension is real. It's understandable, but it can be resolved.
Well, that is all for us from this episode. There will be another fun episode next month. We'll have more confessions from 2026, and we look forward to unpacking them with you all. Thanks.